Following the release of that video, the New York Times published an interview with two women who say Trump touched them inappropriately. Jessica Leeds, now 74 years old, described sitting next to Trump on a plane more than 3 decades ago. She says he began touching her after takeoff, describing it as an assault. Another woman, Rachel Crooks, told the paper about a similar interaction with Trump when she was a 22-year-old receptionist working in Trump Tower. Ms. Crooks recalled after she introduced herself to Trump, he began kissing her directly on the mouth. Leslie Sanchez, CBSN political contributor and Republican strategist, joins us now by phone. Leslie, let's start with this video. You can hear Trump in that video say, quote, "I'm going to be dating her in 10 years. Can you believe it?" End quote. How can we expect the Trump campaign to respond to this latest wave of accusations?
Well, I think we've seen already that the Trump campaign's come out and vehemently denied at least the accusations from the New York Times. It's very hard to deny what he is saying, on the tape. It leaves very little room for speculation. I mean, he's very clear about the crude and outrageous tone that he's taking. And the challenge here, Elaine, is a couple of things. One, he has absolutely no credibility in this space, whether it's individuals who already know him, who have reported on him. You can't make the case legitimately that this is just media bias. Yes, these are dripping out every day, and you're hearing kind of these new accusations, but he has no credibility for the last 10 years that show that he wasn't and hasn't behaved in this type of this kind of behavior. That's the challenge. That's the least of the challenges for the Trump campaign.
The campaign, as you said, has pushed back when it comes to the New York Times piece, calling this article, quote, fiction, and trying to make the case essentially that this is nothing more than a political attack. As I look at the statement here, I'm wondering, Leslie, you talk about credibility. Is there still, though, a possibility for further fallout? Because, as you well know, his core supporters have stood by him through the release of that video last week.
Sure. I think the core supporters, and you've seen it on the campaign trail, will be defiant. They will see this as a challenge. They will see this as a both media bias and a big, a firestorm from the left. But I will tell you, support among women is going down like the Hindenburg. Really difficult to overcome for so many reasons. It has a generational problem. Whether it's, you're talking about women in these articles in the 70s and 80s who had have experienced similar things to that. You have women of a younger generation who have been very much, like we've talked about, very sensitive, very open on social media about talking about what is okay and what's not okay. There's just a different tone in America when it comes to these types of accusations. I think we have to be careful because we don't know. It is a case of he said, she said. But from a media perspective and from a campaign perspective, he has such a thin thread to weave a good story together. I just don't know that it's doable.
So I wonder, Leslie, as we've seen the poll numbers, he's already trailing Hillary Clinton in the polls. Do you expect numbers to slip further?
I expect numbers, particularly in the women's space that we're talking about. He's got his solid base of support. We've been talking a lot about swing voters, and you do have so many folks who have said that they're, these undecided. The undecideds have made up their mind. They just necessarily weren't committed. They weren't committed to going either to a Democratic ticket, which they haven't done maybe in their lifetime, or for a third-party candidate. But I think that is the change we're about to see, is people are going to be more vocal about looking for an alternative or maybe standing down in this election. That's what we have to be careful of, is the overall effect. I don't think, Elaine, we know yet.
So I wonder, against that backdrop, Leslie, from a strategic perspective here on the political front, what would be the best options, you think, for the Trump campaign at this point as we hear more and more of these stories and videos emerge?
Sure. It's not the first time that Republicans have faced this kind of onslaught of, just accusations. They've just never compounded so much and been so outrageous, so disturbing, and quite honestly, so exhausting. This is an area nobody imagined we would be talking about as it relates to the leader of the free world. That's what's so difficult. It's difficult to overcome. And the Trump campaign does not have a bank of governors and strong leaders in the state parties that have come out and said, we're going to stand with him regardless. We know his character for the last, 10 years. As a matter of fact, just today, the Iowa state chair for the Federation of Republican Women stepped down because she could not in good faith support the top of the ticket. So it's already having ramifications down ballot and in the party structure itself. That's going to be the challenge. There's not a surrogate operation that's strong enough or healthy enough or legitimate enough to give this saliency.
Leslie, you and I have talked on the air many times about how effective a surrogate Ivanka Trump has been for her father. And she hasn't appeared with him following the release of that video, the 2005 video. How significant is that, you think, Leslie?
It's extremely significant because she has, and I don't think we know yet what she's going to do. This is a situation where you need a Judy Smith, a crisis manager, to come in there and really clean this up and get in front of this as soon as possible. And again, it goes to the fact that Donald Trump is a poor messenger on this. He can say defiantly, and his supporters will stand with him. But for a lot of women who've really been struggling with what to do on November 8th, this is just compounding the problem. And Ivanka, I believe, instinctively knows that. Most women know that, especially business leaders who've been in probably uncomfortable situations themselves. They understand that it's imperative that we empower women, and this is not the kind of stand you want to take politically or professionally.
All right, Leslie Sanchez, thank you so much for your perspective. Appreciate it.